pose a national question. How much is too much borrowing? When does borrowing become too much and unbearable to a nation? The only time debt is a burden to a nation is if a nation is led by looters. But in the hands of a visionary administration, debt is a catalyst for rapid development. You cannot implement big push investments in an environment of political strife and hypocrisy. Many have doubted whether my government has achieved in the second term. But let me tell you, we have. And the record must reflect that this is true of all.
President Uhuru Kenyatta addressing his final public holiday celebrations with 67 days to go to the August 9th general election. And just like we've seen in previous addresses, he really went heavy on his legacy. I mean, let me take you back. Jamhuri Day 2021, he spoke about his legacy. The last State of the Nation address that took place on the 30th of November 2021, he was also heavy on the same thing, Mashujaa Day celebrations as well. And of course, this one was no different. Jamila?
Yeah, it was not any different. And he went on and on at some point. Let's make it brief. But really, it is, as we said, it was his last national event, akiongoza kama rais. This was it, June 1st, Madaraka Day. Our next national holiday will be after someone else has been sworn in as president. So I think he really needed to take this chance, aseme yale yote amefanya, na yale ambayo anaachia wale ambao wanakuja. Okay, he spoke about the roads and talking about how his administration had built more tarmac roads than his 3 predecessors combined. And it is true that if you look at the data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and I was looking through after I saw an article in the Daily Nation, that by December last year, we had 21,826 kilometers of road, which is 12,000 kilometers during his tenure, even though some of these roads had been conceived and budgeted for and funded in the Kibaki government. That's one. And two, he spoke about his achievements in the education sector. Yes, we've been having misukosuko with CBC, but remember there are universities and TVET institutions also, which if you look at what he was saying, number imeongezeka kwa kiasi kikubwa. I think we have now 705 TVET institutions in the country. This has grown to over 2,396 institutions in general by the end of last year. This is good. He spoke about his achievements in the land registry and the fact that now we have Ardhi Sasa and the mapping that has been going on in the Ministry of Lands. And he really spoke out about the officer, the brigadier, I think, who had done it. And it is true. And you need to give him credit where it's due when he talks about those achievements, his government, what his government has done. And he keeps saying most of what he has done was in the second term, the second 5 years. But Rais jana alichukua nafasi hiyo kuonyesha kwamba amefanya kazi. Yes, kuna upungufu because no one is perfect, but really mostly talked about what he had done. And there are those who will say, we appreciate the tarmac roads. Hata mimi safari za kwenda nyumbani Moyale, for I can say it here now, it's shorter. We used to travel overnight to be able to get home, but now unaweza kufika in a day. Yeah, I was speaking to my colleague and she said for her, Huduma centers made a difference in application for IDs and replacements and driving licenses and things like that. So we need to give credit where it's due. There are things that have been done that have really, really helped people and changed their lives, and we need to accept it. Gashu, I don't know what you felt ukiwa pale.
Yeah, I was at Uhuru Gardens, and listening to President Uhuru Kenyatta, first of all, I anticipated that this being his last national celebration that he was presiding over as president, he would take time to enumerate what his government has done, you know, achievements, the challenges, the opportunities, the achievements. I suspected that would be the situation. It was pretty obvious that that would be the case. Truth be told, there are quite a number of things that have been done by the Jubilee administration, President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure, 2013 to 2017, 2017 to 2022. There are a number of things that he has done in terms of roads, in terms of electricity connectivity, in terms of, you know, the digital space. There are quite a number of things that have been done. You know, credit to him. There are quite a number of things that have been done. But at the same time, there are things that are obvious misses in his administration. Talk about the cost of living, you know, the cost of debt. It has been a pertinent issue. It cannot be said it has been all bad, and it cannot be said it has been all good. There are achievements that he has had, there are failures that he has had, there are lessons that the next administration can learn from his term, just like there are things that he learned from President Mwai Kibaki's tenure. And because government is in perpetuity, there are things that the next president will have to do better than what President Uhuru Kenyatta has done. And there's some things that the next president must avoid that have been done by President Uhuru Kenyatta's term. But the good thing is, Kenyans out there can be able to tell from their locality, from their homes, from their counties, from their constituencies, even before you now come to the national picture, what has been done in their locality. And so if it is a road, I mean, a road is a visible thing. If it is about electricity connectivity, it's something that is visible. There are also those who will say, this is how my situation was before 2013, this is how my situation has changed after between 2013 to 2022. So the scorecard is out there. While the president has given his self-appraisal, there's also the appraisal by the electorate that can be able to tell what has been done and what has not been done. But it would be unfair to say nothing has happened, nothing good has happened during his tenure. It would be an unfair analysis of it. But it would also be unfair to say it has been all rosy and everything good has happened during his tenure. There are things that have not been done right, just like there are quite a number of things that have been done right.
Isn't it interesting that, you know, for this administration, it almost feels like President Uhuru Kenyatta has been on his defense for the better part of his second term. If you take a look at the other presidents before President Mwai Kibaki, President Moi, all of whom are now no longer with us, they, you know, were leaving office and of course they did, you know, say what they had done. But it almost feels like for President Uhuru Kenyatta, he has been on the defensive and has, you know, really been put to task to explain his legacy and to outline it in very specific terms, in speeches that are very expansive, going into all of the areas, be it the Big Four and a number of other issues. I think more than any other president in Kenya's history, and you know, that is what I find particularly interesting, that for him it has been the need to explain, you know, what he has done, you know, at just about every opportunity that he gets, particularly over the last year. He's been put to his defense with his legacy.
Absolutely. And the one unforgiving thing about legacies is that legacies prefer to be discussed way after the person has left the scene. So I don't think the president will even achieve much in terms of trying to get this discussion going right now. Because right now what you see Kenyans doing is to say, oh, President Mwai Kibaki did so well in bringing down the interest rates and therefore spurring growth among the bottom of the scale people. Yeah. Same to Uhuru Kenyatta. He might need to wait a little bit to actually hear the Kenyans' verdict on his performance. But there are things that can be said right now, and that is President Uhuru Kenyatta is the first president to serve under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Yeah. A very challenging constitution because it deliberately departed from the arrangement we used to have. And you saw yesterday the cabinet secretaries in State House paying tribute to their boss. And it's a mixture of cabinet, because previous cabinets all through history were all political cabinets made up of politicians. In this cabinet of Uhuru Kenyatta, as at yesterday, out of the 21, only 7 really have a political background. The rest do have this professional background.
Technocrats.
They're technocrats. When you look at Fred Matiang'i, for example, Fred Matiang'i used to be in the SUNY State University of New York officers here in Nairobi. He was in the NGO world. You look at Farida Karonei, our colleague who was here as a journalist in the Royal Media Services. You look at the likes of Monica Juma, who are basically in academia, and they come to government. Yeah. Now, he had the challenge of leading a government and a structure that is dictated very, very heavily by the new constitution. And did that land him into problems? Yes, it did, especially politically. You see, previous presidents all had the very strong shield of a political cabinet.
Yeah.
He didn't have that option. Right now, there is a lot of debate about the participation of cabinet secretaries in politics because they're not supposed to. Unlike their predecessors in ministries who are political beings, entities, they cannot do that. Did that play to his advantage or disadvantage? More to disadvantage than anything else, because government is a political animal. So the fewer politicians you have around you, the more exposed you are politically. And I think for Uhuru Kenyatta, he's actually been quite exposed politically. He didn't have the shield and that his predecessors had. So I think one of the things that will be looked at when it comes to assessing President Kenyatta, it is with regard to how he executed the office in line with the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and what challenges he faced right there because of that.
Yeah, and you talked about the cabinet for a moment. I'd like us to listen to him, because there was that cabinet meeting that took place just before, the celebrations that took place at Uhuru Gardens, at yesterday's Madaraka Day celebrations. Let's listen to Uhuru thanking his ministers for the work done.
Mine is just to really just say thank you. It's a wonderful 59th day of Madaraka. We look forward for all of us having a great day. It will be my last Madaraka as president. And I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you. We have worked well together. It's been both a pleasure and an honor to have you with us. And I am confident we have laid a firm foundation for those who shall come after to continue and to build a bigger, brighter, more prosperous Kenya than from where we have left off. So yangu ni kusema asante sana kwa kazi, na Mungu aendelee kuwabariki na kubariki Kenya. Asanteni sana.
Yeah, and there you have it, thanking his ministers for a good job. I mean, I just want to get into, when you start to go into matters of your legacy, when you are still in office, and in an era of fact-checking and where, issues and numbers can come up. I mean, it's been interesting that the president has had that moment where he says one thing and is being fact-checked, and there's many organizations in the country and across the continent that are doing that. Just to point out some of those that he's made at the State of the Nation, because he has made similar claims, from one speech to the next. And, Africa Check took a look at some of the statements that he made last year during the Mashujaa Day celebrations about, for instance, access to electricity, what the state of the national grid was in 2013 when he took office and what it was thereafter. Claims, remember, around the ICU bed capacity during the COVID-19 pandemic and how that had increased about 502%, claims that Africa Check found to be unproven at the time, and that he had severely understated what the grid was. The national grid, he had stated it as 1,300 megawatts in 2013. It was, in fact, 1,700 megawatts. So, that is the thing about putting out these facts during your tenure and at a time when people have access to records and can say, well, hang on a second, like you said, on this, yes, you're right, you did a good job. You moved, these statistics and improved the lives of Kenyans from one state to another. But on this one, it was correct. However, there are certain issues and facts that we need to get over. And, just even as he talked about his legacy, I just want to go very quickly into what was probably political when he waded into that. And of course, he talked about, the issue of gender parity in the country that has been elusive, at least at the National Assembly, but that one that might be out there. And, President Uhuru Kenyatta then made yet another statement that just showed where his political allegiance lies. Let's listen to him talking about his first, what could be a first female deputy president under the 2010 constitution in the country.
If it is the wish of the Kenyan electorate, we have a chance of electing a woman and shattering the glass ceiling by assuming the second highest office in the Republic of Kenya.
Yeah.
Yvonne, such national celebrations are, they're guided by protocols.
Right.
They're supposed to have officers who plan for these events for weeks or months in advance, from the sitting arrangement to the timeline of events to the program. Even
to what the speech, its contents.
I was one of the MCs at the Jamhuri Day celebrations last year, and I was amazed at what goes into planning this. Even for us who are emceeing the event, we did a whole rehearsal from beginning to end several times just to make sure everything works correctly. We even did recordings. Everything was timed up to the last second, and it was elaborate. But then now, usually have, of course, the program. And it's printed and shows who's going to speak and all that. But it was a bit funny this time because the protocol program was a bit different. One, there were two sets of programs that were there. There was one that was a soft copy, and then there was that was a hard copy. The hard copy did not give details of who was going to speak when. If you look at previous celebrations, it actually clearly states that probably the governor will speak, and then they'll invite the deputy president, who will invite the president. It wasn't so this way. There was just written state address. What state address means, well, muta interpret wenyewe. And then now, there was, of course, a ceremony where the president gave out awards to various Kenyans for various achievements. And then the president took over. He appeared to run his own show after the entertainment. He introduced the visiting president from Sierra Leone who spoke. And then he took over himself and started talking. Usually, I think this is the first time we have seen since 2013 to date that the deputy president has not invited the president to speak. We saw it during the national prayer breakfast just about a week ago.
Right.
Nakuja kazungumza. Yes, we've seen the president break protocol in instances where he's been invited to speak, then he invites Raila Odinga to speak, and then goes back. And that happened. And then now, kulikuwa na vijembe. Waswahili wanasemaga vijembe, those two small manenos unatupa-tupa. And in between his speech, he did quite a bit of that. After he talked about how technology had grown, he said, na mnatumia kunitukana. So there were a lot of those small innuendos that he was talking about. And it really is interesting. And I was looking at an interesting headline this morning on one of the Swahili daily Taifa Leo. Kimeumana, like literally kimeumana, and this is it between the president and his running mate. And the fact that now he took over that program did not give him a chance to speak. Kama protocol ilikuwa haikufuatwa kabisa, and he kept throwing hivyo vijembe in his speech, talking about his legacy. Even when it's over, it's a wrap. The relationship with the president and his deputy.
And obviously the statement alluding to the possibility of Kenya receiving a first female deputy president, no guessing. The reference.
So ulikuwa hapo kwa stadium.
No, I think Wajakoya was just clear today.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, and he has a female running.
You make a fair point. And we'll wait for Muthiora Karriere as well, who has nominated a woman. Thank you for that reality check.
The only challenge with the LK statement is that we're talking about yesterday, not today. So the statement cannot have been...
Oh, I see that. Yeah. Good, fair point.
Cannot have been a post-dated comment.
Okay.
I mean, it's obvious. The president was, in a subtle way, campaigning for the Azimio team and campaigning for Martha Karua. He has not hidden where his preferences are. He has made it clear who his preferred successor is, Raila Odinga, whose running mate, as at this point, as at yesterday, and I mean, it was obvious, is Martha Karua. And we all remember the scenario the country was in on 16th of May when that decision was made by Raila Odinga to name Martha Karua as his running mate. But more importantly, and just maybe to step one step back, you're dealing with a more critical electorate, a more critical population that has a lot of access to information. And so any statement that you will make will be immediately analyzed. And so that's why even the discussion around the president's legacy yesterday triggered quite some discussion where people agree he was spot on. Other places they said he understated, and other places that he was not, on the line. But be it as it may, the protocol question that Jamila is talking about, well, at Uhuru Gardens, normally during these national celebrations, the booklets are placed on the seats of especially the dignitaries, way ahead of their arrival. Yesterday was slightly different. Those booklets were distributed a little more later. And when I looked at it, I remember sharing a copy of it with LK. It didn't have the specifics of that, the address in terms of who will speak first, followed by who. Ordinarily, by protocol, precedents and history and traditions, it is the governor of the hosting county who speaks, is invited by the MC.
Right.
Then once the governor has spoken, he invites the deputy president, who then invites the president. And if there is a visiting president, sometimes it is the deputy president who will invite that visiting president.
Or the president.
Or the president will, at his own discretion, invite the visiting president. But yesterday, immediately after the awards were given, the state investors, I saw the president summon his aide-de-camp to give him the speech.
Together with the podium,
and immediately the guys who were handling the microphones brought the two podiums. One for President Uhuru Kenyatta and the other one for the visiting Sierra Leone President Julius Maada Bio. And immediately, a few of my colleagues we were with, Akina Rashid and Lulu and Hassan, where we were seated, we could see and we say, there's something interesting that is happening here. And even as the speech progressed, there was probably some expectation that after all is said and done, the president would invite or recognize at least his deputy, the other leaders who are present, including Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, and all the other leaders who are present. But look at the salutations at the beginning of his address. He mentioned the Chief Justice, the Cabinet Secretaries, speakers of the two chambers of Parliament, and other national leaders.
That was it.
No mention of the Deputy President. And it's a confirmation of the scenario, the relationship between the President and his Deputy. And it reminded me in 2013, Madaraka Day celebrations were President Uhuru Kenyatta's first national event as the head of state.
Right.
Compare what happened then at Nyayo National Stadium, where, and I covered that event, vis-a-vis what happened yesterday at Uhuru Gardens.
Night and day.
A total contrast, And I've heard arguments like this political scenario is obvious, that during political campaigns, what happens and what happens during the national celebrations. And not so long ago, during the national prayer breakfast, the deputy president was asking for forgiveness for any mistake that may have committed during his tenure and the relationship with the president. And maybe there was expectation that something of the sort would have happened at Uhuru Gardens. But I think what the president decided to do yesterday was to run his show. Protocol notwithstanding, run his show and keep it at that. However, there were discussions around whether it was right or wrong. But you see, protocol is not written anywhere in law that this is what should be done, followed by this. It's all a question of practice and traditions and precedents. And so goes to confirm once again that the next president has to work very hard, and the next deputy president has to work very hard in terms of that relationship between the two. Because if it doesn't work, it will be a replica of what we are seeing in the second term. If not worse, of a replica of what we are seeing for President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto. So it's some of the lessons that their predecessors have to learn.
Do we want to...
yes.
Go ahead.
Yvonne, I interpreted the situation rather differently. It was a grand finale of the differences between the president and the deputy president. This was exactly how it was expected to end. because this is their last official function.
Yeah.
And there is something that has been going on between them in the recent public events, and that is a popularity sort of contest that goes on. If you remember when Mwai Kibaki, the late president, was being buried in Othaya, and before that the state ceremony at Nyayo National Stadium, when the deputy president received a lot of adulation, you know, there's cheering. Whether that was spontaneous or organized, it has an effect of embarrassing the president, which is basically the deputy president gets to show you that he's got a following. People are moving from you, lame duck president, you are done, your time is up, and they're moving to him. So is there a possibility that the president was also moving to ensure that on his last day, his last national ceremony, those are not the images, the cheers that would be... That's
not the lasting memory.
Yes, the lasting memory. You know, you have this crowd then cheering Deputy President William Ruto over you, and with our foreign guests seated there. I think we have to look at it in the full context of the conflict between the two. But of course, the temptation is to look at it piecemeal. I've seen people saying, oh, there was a visitor, this is our own thing. You have to look at the Kenyatta-Ruto differences in the context of the 9 years, and especially in the context of the last 5. Very, very broken relationship that has been playing out in public. I keep comparing what we see between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto with what we saw or what was seen with the Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo and Atiku Abubakar. The relationship broke down this way. And in his book called My Watch, he writes in a very, very brutal way about his vice president and talks of disloyalty, talks of the appetite for money, talks of lack of a clear stand on questions to do with corruption. He really smashes his former vice president and says, you know, at a personal level, the relationships got broken. It'll be very interesting to see what President Uhuru Kenyatta will write about William Ruto, because when we look at their story, it started out so well. And you know, people talk of 2013, but we in media who covered these guys all along do remember that it predates that. In 2002, when Uhuru Kenyatta was a political greenhorn, to put it in the most polite way, a political greenhorn running for president, there were 2 politicians that were basically by his side all the time. And that is William Ruto, MP Eldoret North, and Julius Sunkuli, MP Narok West. Those were the 2 that really were accompanying him in the course of his campaign, and later on joined by the vice president of 3 months, Musalia Mudavadi, who now came to be his running mate in 2002.
Right.
So the story of Ruto and Uhuru predates 2013. In Kanu, Ruto actually was there to receive Uhuru, show him round and help him go about the first run for president in 2002. And then, you know, they went separate ways after the 2005 referendum. Ruto going to ODM, Orange Democratic Movement, and Uhuru, who was also part of the founders of ODM, going back to Kanu and going to support Mwai Kibaki for the 2007 election. So there is a story. They have a story. But now there is something they have not told us. What happened between 2013 and 2018 and 2017? Yeah, because everything that we are witnessing now must have happened in
it has its roots in the first time.
In the first time. Whatever went wrong in the first time. We've been left to speculate and interpret things. And some of us have offered opinion about, for example, the early campaigns by the deputy president
as the reason.
As the reason. Politically, I mean, the president would interpret that as, you know, you're undermining my time. I'm still in charge. Why can't you wait until that time actually comes? But if Obasanjo wrote My Watch, I think William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta owe us some really colorful books.
Yeah, indeed. We can't wait for that. Yeah,
they do. And I think one of the fundamental aspects of that book, if it will be written, it will be the question of a shared presidency, if there is anything like that. Because what we have as a presidential system, with a running mate who is tied at the hip with the presidential contender, sometimes it has always sounded like a shared presidency, our government, you know, a co-presidency, if you may like. But is it a co-presidency? Is it a shared presidency? I remember the other day we had a session with Mother Karua on Kirerembe, and I posed that question to her, and she was like, one president at a time, you know, it is the president's show and deputized assisted by his deputy. And so asking her what lessons she has learned or she would implement if her and Raila Odinga would win. And she was like, it is the president's show. I may disagree with him, but it is his decision, it is his show at the end of the day. And so I think there are some fundamental lessons the future presidents will learn from what has happened during the Uhuru Ruto term. And it started in 2013 because it is obvious it was a coalition government between URP and TNA. And then the merging and, you know, the collapsing of the 13 or 14 political parties made it an even bigger team in 2017. But that tinge of coalition was still part of it. And so as we move forward, maybe the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, or even the 10th presidency, that question of how the president relates with the deputy president, insofar as the question of whose show it is, will continue to reign very dominant.
Yvonne, I know we are finishing up, 20 seconds. I should have said the word fundamental. Yvonne, the fundamental differences, there are fundamental differences between the two. It's not about, I don't like you. There is more to it. What is it about the deputy president that the president knows? And what is it about the president that the deputy president knows? Hiyo ni katikati yao. But sio ati sikupendi tu. No, there's something fundamental difference between the two. And that book, nitaisubiri sana tujue nini ilifanyika. I'm pretty sure. And it's time to take this home. Kaikaya hajaanza hii kitu for a
long time.
You are running